Hello. We're going to wait just a bit, give folks a few minutes to join here. I hope everybody's having a good day so far. I'm looking forward to having a couple more people join us before we get started. And then we'll kick off into getting started with Tymeshift, which I am super excited about personally because I feel like if we have a good setup on our account initially, that bodes well for the future. So making sure we have everything set up first and foremost is going to make sure our accounts are running as well as they can be, really. Alrighty. We'll give a few more minutes. It is 9 a.m. here Pacific time. And I see some folks are joining. Hi there. Welcome. We do have the chat over to the right-hand side of your screen, so feel free to jump in, and on top of asking any questions, because we want to know all of your questions, you can also leave some feedback, comments, and we can have a little bit of a chat. So just for some background, as we get started here, my name is Lilith. I am coming to you from Northern Nevada, and it is April and it is snowing outside. So that's really fun for us. Hoping that the spring will actually come and stop teasing us here soon. So we'll see how that goes. Alrighty, just gonna give a few more minutes and then I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. We're gonna jump into like a very, very short presentation, and then I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes, as I say, of getting started with Tymeshift. So we'll just give a couple more minutes for folks to go ahead and join. And Kanisha, welcome. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. If you want to throw in the chat where you're joining us from, I'd love to hear. And we'll give everybody else about one more minute, and then we'll jump right in. Maryland, oh my gosh, that's actually one of my former stomping grounds, actually. I moved to Nevada from Northeast Maryland, which is also a town, but the location as well in the state. So happy to have you. Thank you so much for joining today. And I think we can go ahead and get started. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we will take a look at, as I mentioned, a little presentation, and then we'll kick into everything else. So just give me one moment here to pick the proper screen. Okay, there we go. Perfect. All right, I have another screen over here. So if you see me glancing, it's probably at my notes or grabbing some links for y'all as we go through. So, again, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be diving into getting started and getting immediate value out of Tymeshift. So, the real point of our session today is making sure our accounts are set up, making sure our agents are well trained, and making sure you can see that the tracking is set up and going well. So, just a couple of housekeeping things here. Please go ahead and ask questions in the chat. We'll be able to answer them there, and I'll check in from time to time as we go through to make sure that we can call some things out if they're important. Also, there will be a recording sent after we wrap up today. I know that's the big question of if you want to watch it again or if you're not feeling like scribbling down notes. Don't worry, we'll send you a recording right after. It usually takes a couple minutes to process, but you'll get an email with that link. Next, we're going to be jumping into the next session of our series here with our webinars on May 4th. So that's going to be in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, we're doing every other Thursday. And the next section is diving into real-time and historical monitoring and reporting. So we'll get your account set up today, make sure we're on the same track. Then from there, next week, we will jump into the reporting and real-time side. And then in the following sessions, we'll get into our forecast and our scheduling as well. If in the event all of your questions are not answered today, our support team is here to help. So please go ahead and send over any additional questions to support@tymeshift.com, and they'll be able to help you out and get everything sorted. And I have a couple of tips that I'll show you as we go through the webinar today on how you can access the support team even easier than sending them a quick email. But with that in mind, the next thing I want to do is just a little introduction to me. My name is Lilith. I'm coming to you from Northern Nevada. I started using Tymeshift in 2017, so way back in the day when I was actually an agent. I was being tracked by Tymeshift. And then in 2019, I joined the Tymeshift team and have been here ever since. We also have Edric joining us in the chat. He is one of our amazing support specialists. He's been with Tymeshift for over a year, coming to you from northern Portugal, Porto, but I know that the team in Portugal travels, so maybe Lisbon, but I think Porto today. Edric, correct me if I'm wrong. And again, he's going to be answering all the questions in the chat as we go through. Now, amazing, Porto. Now, some things we want to cover today. Again, proper settings and where to start with Tymeshift. We're going to make that quick because I know that most people have already started with Tymeshift, but we'll walk through just the initial setup. And then understanding how Tymeshift automagically tracks our agents and how we get that information. And then how to train your agents for the best results. Again, I was an agent using Tymeshift, so I feel like I have some kind of key call outs that will be really beneficial for getting your team all on the same wavelength there. And with that being said, I think we'll go ahead and jump in and get to it. So I will change my screen share over to another page for us here. And we'll go ahead and take a look. Now you'll see a couple of tabs. I am a pro tab enthusiast. I love tabs. And I actually have a hot tip for you as far as Zendesk tabs that are going to help you manage those. So I want to start off again with just the basics of how we get started with Tymeshift. So I'm going to share one of my screens here. And you'll see our website. Now, again, coming to the very beginning of how to install Tymeshift. We'll go through this super quick, but if you head into our website, you're going to be able to see free trial in a number of places. And that's where you can get started. So you can get started on our free trial and then go for, a paid for plan after that. We also offer a free plan if in the event that is more your level. It is restricted to just one of our real-time monitoring features though, so keep that in mind. Once you click here, you'll go ahead and enter your Zendesk domain and click start, and that is going to just take you from your Zendesk URL into the next page. You'll provide your contact details, and then you'll head into Zendesk support next, because that is pretty much all you need. You'll get started, and then heading into support, you're going to see Tymeshift up here in the top right-hand corner. So if you're not seeing your app there, you may need to clear your cache and cookies or refresh your Zendesk apps, and then you're going to be all set. And again, this is just kind of the beginning. There's one other thing I do want to mention here as far as your setup, and one thing that we highly recommend is going ahead and installing the Chrome extension for the Zendesk Quick tab. And with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and share a link in our chat so that you can easily access this. There we go. And if you click through to this link, you're going to be able to just quickly install this, which is going to help a lot. I'll show you what it does. So when you have a external link, so say you got a ticket via Slack and somebody needs to check it out. So you get that link and you click in. Without this extension, what's going to happen is it's going to open a whole new browser tab, right? And again, I love tabs, but we do need to stay organized. We want Tymeshift to track only in one browser tab in Zendesk. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to click through any link. So if I were to just be here and go ahead and open the link from another browser or from Slack, rather than it opening this new browser tab, you saw it real quick, it's redirecting me within the browser tab I'm working in and opening a new ticket tab. So again, we can have as many ticket tabs open as we want, but for Tymeshift to accurately track, we want to only have one browser tab open. So keep that in mind. Go ahead and install that, have the team activate it as well, so that first of all, their life will be a little bit more organized. And second of all, Tymeshift is going to track in the best way possible. Now, again, love tabs, but I do prefer this extension because it only has the tabs within Zendesk, which is super nice. So once we have gone ahead and installed Tymeshift, we make sure that we have the Quick Tab extension installed as well. Let's talk about signing into your Tymeshift account. And this is going to be pretty easy because Tymeshift is linked directly to Zendesk. So you have three options. You can go ahead and do an authentication with Zendesk. You sign into Zendesk and you go ahead and click through into Tymeshift itself. You can do a Google single sign-on, make your life a little bit easier there, or local login. And Tymeshift is going to default to the Zendesk credentials that you have. So keep that in mind as far as your username and password there. Now, another thing I want to mention is how to get into Tymeshift itself. I know some folks will kind of go to an app's website, look for that that sign in button. But just to make your life easier, what I would recommend is going ahead and bookmarking your specific URL so that you can sign in with one click every time. And what that's actually going to be, you can see it up here in our demo account, but it's going to be your Zendesk URL.timeapp.com. So for us, that's timeshiftdemo.timeapp.com. Yourcompany.timeapp.com is going to be the signal for you to go ahead and be able to sign into the Tymeshift web app itself. So that is kind of just the brief overview of getting started, getting signed in. And then the next thing I want to jump into is going to be the kind of global account settings that we need to keep in mind. But before I get there, I want to just take a second and see if there are any questions at this time. I'll go ahead and look over here to see if any have come in the chat. And it doesn't look like any at this time. Alrighty. But again, folks, please, please, please enter any questions you have into the chat so that we can get those answered for you quickly and easily. All right. We'll get into the next piece. Now, first things first here, once you're inside of Tymeshift, you will see that you have a Get Started button here in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, this is an in-app guide to help you with the kind of onboarding experience, or if you forget anything as you're working through Tymeshift, you'll have access to this and you'll be able to jump through. And anytime you check one of these boxes, it's going to send you to the next step. But you can always go ahead and click in case you want to read more about each of these little pieces. Now, with that in mind, I am here for you today live. So we're going to go through kind of the basics together, but that's a great resource as you keep on throughout the tool and keep using it. So the next thing we're going to jump into, as I mentioned, is our settings. Now, I like to start with global account settings and move from there. So if you're following along, you can hover over the gear icon in the top nav bar, and you can find the settings option. This is where we're going to update kind of as I mentioned, the global account settings. So you can come in here, you can update your account details. And then the next thing is going to be time. So you can set your default time zone here, your week start, your calendar start day, your time format in case you want to change that around, and your date format as well. Got those backwards, but you know what I mean. The next thing is going to be showing advanced options. There is one thing I want to highlight here, which is the allow deny list for agents. Now, we're going to get into agent permissions in just a minute, but what this allows us to do is go ahead and add a list of folks that we can allow to use Tymeshift or that we can deny from using Tymeshift. So it's essentially a restriction list. You put your emails in here just one line at a time. You set if you want these folks allowed or permitted to use the tool or not. And then Tymeshift will take this list of emails and either have those as active users or non-active users. And when we're paying by seat, this is important for us. We don't want to have any cost overages. So this is one of those tools that can be really beneficial if we're keeping a very close eye on who's coming in and out of the tool. This brings us into the next thing I want to talk about, which is agent permissions themselves, because the permitted user list is a little bit different than the actual permissions we give to people. So folks that are permitted to use Tymeshift, active users on your account, will need to have specific agent permissions. So again, we're going to hover over the gear icon and we're going to click agent permissions next. It's going to take you here where you can search for your agents, but you can also scroll down to view one long list. This is one of the first things we do need to do is make sure that we set admin permissions. So here I have a list. I can filter if I want to look at the active folks versus deactivated, different skill sets, roles, or groups as well. Now, where did these groups come from? Our Zendesk account. And that is because Tymeshift automatically syncs with your Zendesk. And it's actually pulling all of your agents from your Zendesk instance automatically every 12 hours. Now, if you make an update on Zendesk and you don't want to wait the 12 hours for Tymeshift to catch up, you can always click this icon right here to refresh your agent list. And that's automatically going to pull what it is at this point in time in Zendesk into your Tymeshift instance. It's going to take maybe 2 to 3 minutes to do that. And then you'll be able to adjust anything else as needed here. So this is a good way just to stay on top of your agents. If you want to know how many active agents you have, you can do that here and take a look up here. Again, just an easy way for you to keep a pulse on everybody. But when it comes to actually assigning agent permissions, we'll want to go and add all of our admin who need to have access to Tymeshift web app as admin. And everybody else will default to automatic tracking. And we'll get into what that means in just a minute. But here I can go ahead and look at Alex. Alex is already an admin here, which means that he can jump in and take a look at reporting. He can update schedules. He can look at different teams tracking as well. If the admin is deselected, that means that Alec can see in Zendesk and can be tracked in Zendesk, but will not have access to the Tymeshift web app. So keep that in mind. The next thing is we recommend having automatic tracking on for all of our agents, everybody who needs to be tracked throughout Zendesk, who's working actively in Zendesk. Because that way the manual lift is a lot less for our agents themselves, and Tymeshift can kind of just keep running in the background as they work through their day. And again, we'll get into that agent experience side in a bit, but this is just focusing on the admin side. And because Alec is an admin, I'll go ahead and turn that back on for him there so that he has this available. Now, we do have the option to create roles. So if in the event you wanted to assign a role, you could do that. Go ahead and click admin. Or if you want to apply this specific set of rules and permissions to multiple agents, go ahead and click apply to multiple agents, and you'll be able to click through and do many at once rather than just one by one. If you have a lot of admin, you're not going to want to search everybody and click through as needed. But again, you can also search if you're looking for somebody specifically. You saw a search field there when we were looking at Alex's profile, but I could also take a look and search here and jump right into mine if I needed to. So that's how we're going to take a look at our agent permissions. Again, anybody who needs access to the Tymeshift web app needs to have admin permissions at this time. Anybody who doesn't have admin permissions but is active will see Tymeshift up here in the top right-hand corner as they're working through their day. So agent permissions is a big and important part of Tymeshift, making sure people have access to everything that they need. Again, let us know in the chat if you have any questions as we go through. We'll be happy to get those answered for you. Now, after we talk agent permissions, I do want to mention one other thing, and that is that our agents are probably in multiple time zones. Maybe not, but there is a likelihood that at some point you'll have agents in multiple time zones, and time zones can be very confusing. So we've made it easy for you, and we have this time zone switcher in the top right-hand corner. Now, what I would recommend is going through and starring any of the specific time zones that are going to be used a lot, because there's a lot here, and having to scroll to find your specific one is going to be kind of a pain. So one of the ways I do this is I command F, and I would look for, say, Pacific time. That's the time zone I'm in. I'd go ahead and find the appropriate Pacific time, and I would star it so it comes up first. Just a hot tip there. Then as you click through those different time zones, you're going to see the time relative to whatever time zone you select, which is really nice, especially when it comes to scheduling down the line, or if we have teams, spread out across the globe. So again, that's a little hot tip there. And then the next thing I want to get into is going to be our general tasks. Our general tasks, as you see, there's more options here, but it's going to be in that same section in the gear icon, top nav bar, and we'll go ahead and click into general tasks next. Now, with Tymeshift's tracking, I mentioned it's automagically tracking. And what that means is as your agents work through their day, Tymeshift is automatically picking up the activities that they're doing. That's within Zendesk. However, if our agents are leaving Zendesk for any reason, we want to be able to delineate that time based on that activity. Enter general tasks, right? Or our aux codes here. Now with these, we'll want to set these up so that our agents can click into them as needed when they're doing things outside of Zendesk. And I'll show you how to do that from the agent's perspective, but initially we'll need to set it up here so that it's very clear what other tasks our agents might be doing. So that might include things like break, lunch, meeting, training. We can nest general tasks as well. Here we have some back office work, shipping, packaging, or sending. And then from there, once we've set those up, we want to add specific permissions to them. Now, if you need to set up some general tasks, just click Add General Task in the top right-hand corner. Maybe you differentiate your break options, or maybe you have a, 10-minute coffee break for folks just so that they can up on their coffee intake. So if we wanted to put something else in, we'll just go line by line. So we'll say coffee break is an option, and then we can say, let's see, short chat is another one. I don't know. Different companies have different cultures here, but you might have some that are highly specific to your workflow, as in the back office shipping and packaging, or you might have some that are just really cut and dry, break, lunch, meeting. Maybe that's it. But for these, I'll go ahead and click save. It adds those two at the bottom. And then hot tip here, click the color box to go ahead and assign a different color. This is important because as we get into tracking, it's important for us to clearly be able to see what's going on where. So the color pattern will allow us to really easily understand, is this ticket work? Is this your coffee break? What's going on there? So pick a nice color that you like. Make sure all of these look different so that it's easy for us to identify what's what. And remember, you can turn these on and off. So depending on kind of what our agents are doing, depending on if, a task is no longer important, you can go ahead and disable it so your agents aren't seeing it. And that gets into the next column, which is going to be our group permissions. Our group permissions allow us to set this task to a specific group. So if I'm in the billing group and we have break only associated with the billing group, I'm going to be able to see this, but nobody else will. So generally, we'll have this kind of available for all groups, but you might have some like back office work that might only be for a specific group of folks in Zendesk and therefore only show that as an option to them. The next thing is the occupancy settings. We have 3 options here, even though it kind of looks like 2. We have the option to exclude a task from occupancy. This is really important when we get into the reports section. So keep this in mind. If a task is excluded from occupancy, it's essentially clocking our agent out for that time. So non-paid for tasks. Lunch is often a great example of a non-paid for task. The next thing you're going to see is productive time. If you have productive time selected, it means that this task is just as good as support-related activities. It is equal to working on a ticket, for instance, or chat or a call. So keep this in mind because if neither of these are checked, it is considered non-productive time. Now, how you consider productive versus non-productive time is based on your organization. So keep in mind, is this just as good as working on our support-related queue, or is it taking away from that time our agents are doing it? So meeting is a good example of where this would really depend on your organization. Meetings are generally pretty productive, right? Because they're a necessary part of life. But we could consider this as non-productive because it means our agents are not actively working on the queue. So with that in mind, we just need to consider how we'll want to look at this from a short-term and long-term reporting perspective, and whether or not we want to associate meetings with productivity or taking away from the queue-related productivity. So just keep that in mind. The next thing is setting talk statuses too. Now, this is going to make more sense as we get into the agent experience as they click into these general tasks. But things to keep in mind is, what do you want Tymeshift to do to Zendesk Talk when your agent clicks into this general task? Now, this one is a great example. These two both are, but the idea that when an agent goes on break, they need to be put offline in Zendesk Talk. If they are at lunch here, they need to be put into the away status. So this gives you the opportunity to remove a click from your agent, in which they will click into the general task and Tymeshift automatically updates their talk status when that happens, so that it's very easy and they don't have to do it in 2 places. Okay, so we'll kind of see how that works in just a little bit. Now, with this in mind, again, these are all of our tasks that are happening outside of Zendesk. So if our agents are moving outside of Zendesk, we need to potentially change what their talk status is. But at other times, we might not want to change it, or we might want to move that to an online status as well. So this is the nuts and bolts of the general tasks, anything our agents are doing outside of Zendesk. And just checking in on the chat. Alrighty, so thank you, Edric, for jumping in there. So the talk statuses is reserved exclusively for the enterprise plan. If you'd like to give it a try, please go ahead and reach out and let us know, and we can go ahead and give you a trial so that you can see what that looks like, see if it's worth maybe upgrading or trying out the enterprise plan itself. Alrighty, so we've made it through kind of the real basics of what you need to set up in Tymeshift initially. We've set up our agent permissions, who has admin access, all of these other tasks our agents might be doing. Now let's take a look at what this setup means for our agents and how we can actively train them to use Tymeshift in the best, easiest, most efficient way possible. So I'm going to jump into my Zendesk here, and I'm going to go ahead and head home. And because it's automatic, I'm going to end my day, but we'll get into that in just a minute. So when your agents come into Zendesk at the beginning of their workday, the only thing that they will need to do is start their flow as usual. So usually that means clicking into the first ticket that they plan on working on throughout that day. So once I've clicked into this ticket, you see that Tymeshift in the top right-hand corner starts tracking against that specific ticket. So it's really nice because you can click around from ticket to ticket, and Tymeshift is automatically going to update based on that ticket that you're clicking into. Again, here's where the auto magic comes into play. So as an agent, I click on that first ticket. I go ahead and I work through that ticket. Maybe I submit it as pending, open, or solved from there. And then I'll move into the next ticket. Now, maybe Tymeshift or Zendesk is feeding me that next ticket, and then automatically we see the ticket number and the activity time change. Or maybe we're clicking into home or views and going ahead and selecting the next ticket that we have. Now you saw something happen, this untracked, and you can see here we are live, so it's taking a couple seconds for us to refresh. But when I'm in a ticket, it has the specific ticket number right here and the time I've spent on that ticket. When I go away from a ticket, so navigate into things like my home or views when I'm ready to grab that next ticket, that's when it moves into untracked time. This defaults to red. You can see the red dot there. Untracked time is non-productive time. So again, kind of coming back to our general tasks, the same as one of these options here. It is time our agents are not in queue, but they're also not on a general task either. They're just looking for the next thing that they have. Now, untracked time is a really, really good thing for managers and team leaders to keep track of. But keep in mind that a little bit of untracked time is totally normal. Our agents are going to be searching things throughout the day. They're going to be clicking into different tickets and away from different tickets. So with this in mind, some untracked time, normal. A huge amount of untracked time, like an hour, probably not normal. And why Tymeshift is so valuable, you'll be able to see that in real time. Maybe your agent is stuck on something and needs some help. Maybe they fell asleep or something like that, and we need to just give them a ping to make sure that they have everything they need to keep going. Now, we've talked about ticket time. Ticket time, of course, is any channel. So we're ticket, chat, voice, messaging, whatever you're working in Zendesk, we're picking that up in Tymeshift and the associated number. Now, from here, one thing for us to also keep in mind is that here you can see the general tasks that I have. So when we're training our agents, what we're going to have them do is life as normal. Go into Zendesk, click that first ticket you plan on working on, work on every ticket that you have until it's time for a break or it's time for you to navigate outside of Zendesk. When that happens, click the Tymeshift icon in the top right-hand corner and click the appropriate general task when you're leaving Zendesk. So say it's time for me to go on lunch. I click into the lunch general task, and here I am tracking against lunch itself. Now, as I go through the lunch or my lunch period, I, head out, I get a sip of coffee, I eat. And then when I come back into Tymeshift, or into Zendesk rather, sorry, get the two confused. All I have to do as an agent is, again, click into that next ticket that I plan on working on, and Tymeshift automagically picks up the tracking as needed. So the best trigger for our agents to start remembering as they're getting used to Tymeshift tracking in Zendesk is when I'm stepping away from Zendesk, I need to do something manual in Tymeshift. And that's going to be clicking into a general task. As you see here, I have break starting in 5 minutes. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But here I would then, in 5 minutes, click into break because I need to take off and take a little breather. And then when I'm ready to come back, I simply click into that next ticket I'm planning on working on, and boom, Tymeshift picks up that tracking again. Now, one thing to consider is when I'm done with my day, this premise still stands. I'm leaving Zendesk because I'm leaving work. So therefore, I do need to do something in Tymeshift, because every time I leave Zendesk, I need to do something in Tymeshift. What is that at the end of my day? It's ending my day here. So I clicked that end day button. I might log out of my Zendesk here, and I can head home to have that work-life balance that's so important. So this is how I would suggest training your agents. Again, hey folks, whenever you leave Zendesk or leave your queue related activities, you need to do something in Tymeshift, whether that be clicking into a general task or ending your day at the end of the day. But remember, when we start our day, there's no need to click that start day button because it automatically starts tracking when you start working in Zendesk. So it's just about leaving, not about coming into Zendesk, just to make their life a little bit easier. Now, this is the basics of tracking. I do recommend not having our agents keep this open because it can cause a little bit of anxiety. Tymeshift is meant for our agents to benefit just as much as our managers and our team leads to benefit. Equal accountability on all sides. Our agents know what they're doing. Our managers know what they're doing. That way, if something comes up, either side can say, hey, I need some help here, or hey, we need some different results there. So the benefit is not that we are watching everything our agents are doing. The benefit is that we are getting the information to know when we need to hire more people, to know when our agents are really succeeding at their work so that we can give them the kudos they deserve or incentivize our agents in one way or another based on the information we're gathering on the work that they're doing. So really, it should be a mutually beneficial experience on the agent level as well as on the management level and admin as well, of course. Now, the last thing I want to show you as far as the agent experience is concerned is for schedules. When we're using schedules with Tymeshift, it means that it's a very seamless process with Zendesk as well. So here we would click this Tymeshift icon in the bottom area of the left nav bar. And this is going to bring me into my schedule itself. As you saw, I had a little notification saying, hey, Lilith, your break's in 5 minutes. That's one thing that's so beneficial and we didn't have in Tymeshift for a long time. I wish we had this when I was an agent so that I knew when I needed to hop into the next task proactively. Now we do have that. So your agents are going to know what's coming up next, even without clicking into their schedules. But if they click into their schedules, they're going to see kind of the weekly breakdown of what they have to do, when their start time is, when their end time is, and also what activities are associated when. So now I know I need to be going on break in 1 minute actually, because we have some very specific 1 minute increments implemented in our schedule here just to adapt to some certain circumstances. On the other days, you can see life is a little more normal, 1:30 to 3 or 3:30 to 5, like that. But here I can see what I have to do throughout the day. I can see what I need to be working on at any given time, what's coming up next as well. And then I can also do shift trades and time off requests right here. I don't have any at this time, but we do have the option, first of all, to do a Google Calendar integration. We can do shift trades right here as agents. You can trade your shift, look at your shift pool, request time off, which is super easy. Say I need to go on, you know, I need to have this Saturday off. I can just simply click in to have the Saturday off. I can set a reason specifically if I'd like here, when that start and end time is, add a note to my manager. Once I request this off, it goes into my manager's queue, and then they can approve or deny it and give me a reason why they decided either one. So that's a great way for us to simply see what's going on there. And then we have our time zone switcher here as well. And then we can also refresh just given we wanted to update and see what's going on. So that is an option as far as our agents using Tymeshift. You might not want to allow your agents to trade shifts or request time off here, but having it all in one place is going to save them time and energy. So I do recommend it. Now, we'll take some time here looking over at the chat to see if there are any additional questions. Please feel free to throw them in there if you would like. But this is kind of how our agents are really going to navigate. They have two areas they need to consider, which is this icon and clicking into general tasks, or this icon to take a look at their schedules. So it's pretty easy for them, ideally. So these are the things we want to go through with our agents when we're first getting started with Tymeshift to make sure they're very clear on what needs to happen. Even if we don't get into schedules, we do want to make sure that our agents know how the tracking works. And from there, if there aren't any more questions, I haven't seen any more pop in. Let me scroll. Yep, we're on the same page now. Now I want to show in Tymeshift web app some immediate value that you're going to gain after you've installed. So I'm going to head back into Tymeshift here, and I'm going to take a look at agent activity. Now, in 2 weeks, we're going to deep dive even further into the real-time monitoring and historical reporting. So I'd recommend signing up for that. But I do want to just briefly show you what this is going to look like as you get started. Now, within Tymeshift, we are going to default our work streams, which is something we'll get into in a couple of weeks, but it's one of those settings that we set up so that we can differentiate the type of activities our agents are doing. In the beginning, you're going to default to channel-based work streams. So Tymeshift has created your tickets, chat, and voice work streams themselves, and you've created the other activity types in your general tasks. Now, what you'll see here, for instance, is voice activity. So here I can see for Bryson that this activity of voice was worked from 3:56 a.m. to 4:08 a.m., 12 minutes and 7 seconds. And I can also see the ticket number specifically that was worked during that time. So this is the real-time monitoring that's coming into play as our agents are working through their day. We'll easily be able to see what channel they're working on. And later on down the line, you'll be able to get more specific. If you want to see tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 tickets separately, you can define those differently rather than just the general channels. So kind of a sneak peek for the future, but again, we're defaulting to your 3 basic channels, and you'll then have the additional tasks of the general tasks you created. And again, those red bars are the untracked time as well. So when you first start with Tymeshift, once you get it engaged, you're going to see tracking come in pretty instantaneously. And once you see that, before you get into, the nitty-gritty of setting up work streams and going into long-term reporting, you can jump into agent activity and see what's going on right now. And not only that, you'll be able to click through to specific activities. So one of the things that I found incredibly valuable as I moved to a team manager position or a team lead position was that I could see immediately where my agents were working at any given time, but also here's a chat that somebody spent 26 minutes on. Maybe that's normal for an organization, but for some organizations, we would expect chats to go a lot quicker. So this gave me the immediate opportunity to see what my agents were doing, click in, and open that ticket inside of Zendesk. Here I'm directed to the ticket and I can look at what happened during this time. See if it was reasonable that my agent spent all of that time on this ticket, or maybe it wasn't. So that's a way for immediately finding value in Tymeshift from the moment it starts tracking and you install the tool. That way you can just do some quick auditing, see how things are going, see if people are using their general tasks. If you're seeing long bars of untracked time, likely our agents aren't using those general tasks because that should be, an hour. Maybe that's lunchtime, not untracked time. So that's an opportunity for us to jump in and reach out to our agent and say, hey, do you need some extra help clicking into those general tasks? Was this your lunch period? And then if it was actually a lunch period, this was a lunch period, but you could also edit that activity to go ahead and define, actually, this wasn't a large chunk of untracked. It was actually a chunk of ticket time or lunchtime, right? So that's a way for us to, again, find that immediate value the minute that we start using the tool and click through and see if you have any immediate questions, if your agents are taking to Tymeshift or if you need to have another training. And from here, then we get into even more options. So what we're going to focus on in our next section or our next webinar session in 2 weeks is getting into our organization structure, breaking down our specific activities, our channel-based activities into different work streams, different types of activities that your agents are working on. Again, here we have 3 tiers for our tickets. Our billing, chat, and voice are separate. From there, as we get into a little bit more next session, we're going to be talking through probably a brief overview of agent activity again, but then we're going to be able to see things like our agent statuses, where we can see things in real time if our agents are in and out of adherence, and then taking a look at maybe our attendance and seeing if our agents are coming in on time and that sort of thing. So this is where we're heading in our next session as far as doing the real time and then getting into longer term reports. We have a lot of options here with creating big reports, exporting them as needed. We have a ton of metrics here as well. and even our agent attendance report, which is going to break down a long-term reporting period of the real-time option of that attendance report itself. So, just a sneak peek into what we're going to be getting into in a couple of weeks, and wondering if there are any more questions coming up. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen for the time being, just in case we have anybody in the chat. Alrighty, no questions coming up immediately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some links with you. So the first link is going to be our website. If in the event you have not installed Tymeshift already, you can go ahead and click through to that link and install right there. The next one I'm going to put in is our Help Center. Our Help Center is an amazing resource and has documentation on all of the Tymeshift features. So this is a way for you to just jump in and take a look. We have some getting started best practices like we talked through today. Also, you can get a sneak peek on some of the things we're going to be talking through in 2 weeks as well. Now, the next one I'm going to share is going to be the events page. So if in the event, no pun intended, you have not signed up for our next webinar and you would like to, feel free to click through to our events page where you can sign up for all of our future sessions as well. And that'll be a nice, easy way for you to get on the list or get recordings of these sessions as we go. And the last one that I'm going to send over is our product center. Now, our product center is another good resource for you to check out. This has product updates. This is where you can access our roadmap. You can sign up for our monthly newsletter. You can take a look at our product blogs where you can see all of the recent features that we've released and how to use them and why they're important and very beneficial. So I would say that these are the go-to links. Another thing about the Product Center, on top of having our product updates, our blog, as well as the roadmap, you can submit product feedback there as well. So if there's anything that Tymeshift is lacking for you today that your team really needs, you'll be able to leave feedback right there and easily jump in and say, hey, this is what I need. This is the priority of it. And then the team will go ahead and consider that as we build our roadmap out for the future. And Tymeshift really is created and evolves based on what the teams using Tymeshift need. Our team being one of them. If we see any gaps, we're going to go ahead and think about those, but more primarily our customers and what you need from Tymeshift. So that's how we have created most of our product today, and that's how we continue to adapt our roadmap is to your needs. So we love all the feedback that we can have. We also have some great early access programs for things that are coming very soon. So that's another place you'll be able to go ahead and see those and sign up for early access programs as well. And as always, last but not least, you can email our support team at support@tymeshift.com. They'll be able to help out with anything else. Edric will be there. You might get a response from him if you have any questions. So with that, and not seeing any other questions coming in, we'll go ahead and close out for today. But thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate the time. And we're really looking forward to hearing how it's going for you, if you have any further questions, and how we can support your Tymeshift experience. So let us know. And again, there will be a meeting recording sent out right after this call. And thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye bye.